Good evening. So Sunday morning, 2:25 a.m. in the morning. Per my usual night owl introductions here. So tonight's going to be a little different. As you can see, it's pretty bright in here for 2:30 in the morning. I'm going to introduce a very special guest called the Mushroom Bender. And there's a story that I wrote back in 2013 that goes along with it. And I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to switch over to the second cam and show you the Mushroom Bender. And I'll give you a little preview of the process, and then as I build the other channel, I'll be sharing videos, the same video in both channels, and different biographical stories will come up from time to time about the evolution of the studio and my art background and things like that. So it's a big night. So here we go. Here's the story. What's a mushroom bender? Asked a fairy child to a toad. And the old swamp toad croaked, my, little one. You really don't know? Are you an orphan? Astonished by the old toad's intuition, the fairy child replied, why, yes, I am. How did you know? Well, said the toad, everyone in fairyland knows that it's obligatory by fairy law that all parents tell their children who, what, why, how, where, and what for is a mushroom bender. And since you're clueless, then you must be what we toads call a single snowflake. Blushing, the child shyly said, won't you tell me? Won't you please? Well, said the toad, I suppose I can. After all, I'm the mayor of this ridiculously unlonesome swamp, and as mayors go, we've got our civil duties to tend, and there's no better time to tend than after a question has been asked that this mayor already has the answer to. The toad mayor leaned back on his haunches, scratched his belly with his chin, and commenced the explanation of the mushroom bender, while the single snowflake sat on a pine nut listening in awe. Well, here it goes. I may be a little rusty. It's been a while, you know. We toads don't have to explain all this to our children. That's not to say that we don't when the toadstool fairies don't. Okay, the mushroom bender goes way back to front, some say. It isn't a he or a she, as far as anyone can collectively say. It has no preferences that point to being a prince or a princess. Many have tried to coax it out into choosing from this or that specific treasure chest of goodies, particularly the various fairy factions who love to adopt it for a mascot. Well, as they all learn, as others before have, every treasure chest burns. And that's what a mushroom bender does to a treasure lure to try and reveal its gender identity. It simply burns it. See, the mushroom bender must keep everyone guessing, and for good reason. That way, no one can draw any conclusions to its motives other than the obvious pointing to those dark actions of their own that's being humbly pointed out through the bent mushroom omen. The mushroom bender is an omen bringer, a messenger of goodwill and hard work, a soft heart and a keen sense of shadow discernment. You know, the fairy psyche is one of the hardest to judge in the light of what's best for its forward growth. If decisively nothing else, the mushroom bender, or at least an ancient clan of voiceless psychologists, the mushroom bender goes around at night, bending a specific number of mushrooms, depending on the magnitude of the offense, that's come into its attention. The more bent mushrooms, the more urgent it is for the fairy village folk to reconcile whomever it is that's up to no good. The mushroom bender wears disguises, like pin-on foxtails, skull hats, overcoats, Dutch shoes on one pair of legs, and boxing gloves on another. It's all very Mad Hatter, some say. But it is this way in case it's accidentally seen doing what it does, resulting in no one story of its identification matching the other. Hence, it changes its costume for each mushroom. At one time, the villagers thought there was a clan of mushroom benders, but an elderly snail's keen power of observation straightened that one out. There was a great fuss some time ago as to how the mushroom bender bent the mushroom. Many tried to bend them, and the mushroom simply broke. It was sauerkraut, a famous tomato hornworm, that finally broke his silence and told everyone that his league has known for thousands of years how it was performed, and if the Fairy Garden Club could vow never to dispose of another hornworm and to establish them their own private plants to devour, that he'd disclose it in exchange for such a binding favor. Well, you know how fairy folk ruminate over what they ought to know and don't. It drove them a little nutty. See, because there's always a bit of cuckoo over pristine tomato plants. To reconcile a comfortable balance in such a compromise was rather horrendous affair, and for the sake of your budding innocence, I won't go there today. After a long time, say about an hour, they unanimously decided to draft a rite of passage to the Hornworm clan, and thus was born Hornville Gardens, as you know it today. I love Hornville, exclaimed the fairy child, wiggling and laughing, its crystal and dragonfly wings softly clinking against one another in unison to its clapping hands. Tell me more, please, please. Okay, answered the old toad. So, the hornworm revealed that every mushroom bender knows exactly where a mushroom is going to appear, so it goes to that spot and waits. As the mushroom grows, the mushroom bender gently presses diagonally on it, in the direction and angle of bend it wishes it to grow. That's it. There are bent mushroom readers, too, fairies especially trained to read the intricate subtleties of the bend. It's a ciphering all into itself. And yes, to everyone's surprise, the newly educated fairies got some fairy glitter kudos from the worm's explanation, namely, that there's more than one mushroom bender, though only 1% per continent. Only one per continent. Once again, no one knows where this little fella comes from, but we do know they are sprites because they exhale phosphorus. My cousin Rambushi detected that one on a very cold night while collecting microscopic ice crystals that had fallen on a bent mushroom site and all subsequent ones afterward. Toads collect minuscule oddities, particularly retired toads, and although I'm not retired, I've hammered out enough spare time to amass a beautiful collection of flea eyelashes. Well, back to it. Some say that the mushroom bender clan meets once every 500 years, and only on floating ice sheets that contain one or more pregnant polar bears whom are nesting there. It all seems very odd, especially since most sprites abhor floating land masses, but I am certain that if asked, the polar bear queen would put out any doubt that this meeting is an act of senselessness. It's just not in the mushroom bender's character to be such. Well, at least when it comes to floating meeting places in the Arctic. Mushroom benders can be rascally. They've even left critiques for the Fox clan from time to time, a most embarrassing but humbling relationship those two clans have. Well, single snowflake, I believe that's it. Let's see. Yes, the moral of the story. If you find a bent mushroom, don't try and straighten it out, because it belongs to a fairy's unexamined conscience. Sound your mushroom horn, gather your elders, and gently coax the veiled fairy or fairies whom are veiled in shadow up from the dark and into your light of unconditional love, understanding, and forgiveness. So, I have not heard that story in 13 years. So the mushroom bender is solid bronze, and the dimensions 6.5 inches tall, 4 inches wide. And ultimately, this is the only bronze edition that will probably ever exist. I won't go too deep into my background, but this sculpture style started back in 2013. But when I started sculpting back in like the late 1900s, not like 1900s, not that late, but like I should have said the late 90s. Okay, Freudian slip. So at university, I did more welded steel and cast glass, and it was very contemporary. And so I took a hiatus about a decade and got a little bit into doing a couple classical bronzes for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then took another hiatus for another decade. And then in 2013, I picked up some microcrystalline wax and started sort of playing around with it. And one thing led to another. And one fine morning, I think it was early spring, the mushroom bender was born. Just like that. I don't pre-draw or sketch any of my pieces. They just manifest. And you can see some of them in the background here, which will be up on the pedestal soon enough, so you can get a peek at some of the more recent things. I'm using my iPhone as a second cam, which is not the greatest in the world, although it's a iPhone 6, and it's or not 6, but 16, and it's on 4K, but I'm not sure. There's some I've got it up to the highest frames per second, and it's the best that I can muster tonight. So ultimately the goal is to start these videos and start getting the sculptures out into the world and sharing them and to a wider audience. And I'll go into some of my philosophy around the capitalistic part of art and things like that. And so once the mushroom bender was born, about 11 or 12 other pieces about the same size were also born, and I call them the original family. And I have most of them, about like 98% of them. I think there's 1 or 2 that are out there in the world, and then from there things grew, and I pretty much haven't stopped sculpting since. Although when I was in Texas recently for about 7 months, I did not sculpt. Mainly wrote and did journalistic research around Gaza and the Middle East conflict, and did a few paintings. Worked for the Gallery in Houston for my whole time there. But now I'm back in California, and here we go. So I'm going to switch over to the mushroom bender. So here he is in his full glory. So you can see there's like a bit of an amber overlay. So I'm going to try and figure that out. It should be pure black in the background there. So there's a lighting situation, but there he is with his pin on foxtail, his Dutch shoes. It looks like he's wearing a very loose diaper. I figure he probably borrowed that from an adult who wasn't looking. And he's got a mask he's wearing on top of his head. Has a beard and ears and a swan's head and neck, like a sort of a totemic piece. And there's the mushroom he's bending. He's sort of got a sort of lizard neck piece. But this is not what the mushroom bender looks like. No one knows what they look like. This is just a version of a mushroom bender. And it's not so much that they're shapeshifters. That would be a bit too easy. They dress up and they can contort themselves around a little different than a shapeshifter that would just basically turn to soup inside and then morph around and restructure their skeletal systems to fit whatever form they want. But it's with the mushroom bender being double jointed is about as far as they go. And in the future, I want to create some kind of environment, perhaps, but pretty focused on the importance of the sculpture itself, not too much foo-foo to wreathe the sculpture. It's if the sculpture is a solid visual representation of what you want, then it shouldn't need any additional pick-me-ups wherever you put it. Pewter versions of the piece are available. Ultimately, I don't do a lot of mass production. If I do a series of a piece, it might be 6 to maybe, well, 6 is about it. 6 would be the max. But most of the sculptures I do are quite a bit larger than this piece. And they're one of one. I cast one and then that's it. No 12 editions or something like that. And you can also go on my website and take a look at close-ups of pieces and other artworks. I'm not exactly sure. I think the mushroom bender is there. I may do an additional video of this in about a week or so, once I dial in the lighting and try and figure out how to get better framing on this. But the objective, as I was mentioning earlier, for tonight is to just do it, to get it the best I can with what I've got going on in the studio. My Mac is maxed. All the USB ports are full. All the Lightning ports are full. it's full up, and so I'm getting it done. It's slowly evolving, and thank you for watching. And I'm going to switch back over to the solo. So that's it. Good night and good morning.